living within your means? What does that mean in a sense? And how can you ensure that you are living within your means?
What you need, what you make.
Is it a need? Is it a want?
Welcome yet again to People and Money. We have been talking and we are talking about personal finances. How do we deal with financial decisions based on our needs, our wants, and our income? And we have our resident financial expert, Ncumisa Nodaka. Ncumisa, welcome to Baobab Chats.
Hi, Stan. Thank you for having me.
She's founder and managing director of Ncumisa Chartered Accountants and Auditors, which is based in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. This is episode number 4. Ncumisa, can you quickly catch us up what we have spoken about in the past?
We started off with speaking about living within your means. And then we had a look at monthly expenses. And then our third episode was about variable and fixed expenses. Today, we are looking at how to compile a household or an individual budget.
We are going to look at a practical example, as this is some feedback that we have received from some of the people to say, can we look at something practical? This kind of closes our discussion on budgeting specifically. Ncumisa will take us through. Go ahead, Ncumisa.
Thank you so much, Stan. So looking at our example, we've got a Sia who is a single 40-year-old male who lives in Gqeberha, earning a monthly salary of 40,000 Rand. And receives an annual bonus every year in December of 20,000 Rand. Now, I must mention that this personal budget that we will now compile is for an individual. So obviously, if you're looking at a household budget, you will look at the different individuals' income that actually is to be put together so that you then calculate the monthly expenses for that particular household. So this is just for an individual.
Great. Yeah. Let's jump right in. So he's earning 40,000 and we are looking at typical kind of expenses, right? And we're looking at, say, 48,500 Rand for rental. That seems like quite a high rental for that income.
Well, looking at today's society and how people are living, a person earning about 40,000 Rand in Gqeberha is seen as more of a corporate individual and staying in a particular suburb. And that is the going rate for accommodation that side.
All right. And I see, car repayment of 5,000 Rand. And when I look at the car repayment and I look at the insurances, that gets very close to the rental income. But anyway, these are some of the things we'll talk about in future episodes. Or say, how should we, what is the reasonable percentage and expense? Tell me, when it comes to groceries, for example, how would one come up with that budget? Is it based on your receipts, or how does one or the seer come to say, I spent so much on groceries?
Well, it's based on your receipts and also your consumption, because generally in South Africa, or generally individuals know how much they would then consume. For example, things like fruit and veg, that you can buy almost like on a weekly basis, but you do know essentially of the bigger items, how much you would consume in a month.
Yeah. And I see savings plan of 1,000 Rand out of 40,000 Rand. Wow.
It's important because the thing is, remember what I mentioned in previous episodes we had, is that people's budgets, they all differ. Your needs and my wants are not going to be the same, So depending on what it is, why are you actually saving? It could be you are saving because you want to get into the culture of saving and being able to have money at your disposal when you have an unforeseen event or an emergency that requires you to actually pay some money. Or you are saving towards a trip in December. Maybe you want to go to Europe and travel. It all depends on what your own financial goals are.
All right, that's great. So Sia, at the end, after compiling all his expenses, remains behind with 2,100 rand.
Yes,
after all the expenses, and this is then what you call the disposable income.
that's very true. Yes.
Meaning this is the income now that Sia can say, my brother is sick, maybe I need to help, or send something to to a family member, or at least I can use this up. In this example, just relating to what we discussed earlier, where you had said some people have to put alcohol onto their budget. Maybe this is where now the likes of alcohol budget comes from.
Well, I would be a bit concerned being Sia and just remaining with 2,100, because from there we haven't even spoken about bank charges of all these transactions that are there. So that still needs to be factored in there. And you'll see there is a line item I included on there for entertainment. So his alcohol is limited to that amount. Should he then exceed, yes, he does have a bit of money to play with, but it is not a lot, because looking generally, what the rule says is that 20% of your income one should be saving.
Wow, this is great. Ncumisa, this has been a great example, and at least to look at it, from a realistic point of view of how one can compile a budget and what it means. So essentially, this means if Sia says maybe he wants to go and buy a second car, or he wants to change where he stays or whatever, he has to look at it and say, all I have left is 2,100 rand. Whatever that I need to spend on any additional expense, is it going to fit in this amount of money? Now, I want to touch quickly on something. We spoke about variable expenses earlier. So if we look on this budget of Sia, what are the factors that are such that, say, if Sia says this month, because I want to save to go on an overseas trip or something like that, I need to save maybe 3,000 rand a month. Which kind of expenses on here can Sia look at adjusting?
Okay, so Sia could look at adjusting, number one, entertainment, maybe DSTV and Showmax. He can also look at adjusting fuel usage. A lot of people nowadays are working from home because of the pandemic and its impact. So shouldn't be using that much fuel if you're working from home. And also maybe the cell phone contract, have a look at that. Electricity and water, with what's currently happening in South Africa, that is on the incline. So I don't see him saving much there. So I think on those 4 items, he can start looking at those and work out a plan from there.
I think this has been a great example, and how one can implement and use this example of Sia to work on their own personal budget. Obviously, all of us, our circumstances are different, and we have to look at it differently. But at least this gives us an idea of these things we've been talking about in the past 4 episodes. Ncumisa, to close this episode, it's critical that then now because we've been talking about all different elements about budgeting, can you summarize it all, and what main takeaway can we take from this conversation that we've had for these 4 episodes?
Okay. I think the main takeaway, just to give an overall view, a budget is an estimate of your income and your expenses. We also took a look at living within your means. That is ensuring that you only spend as much money as what you have coming in, or just below of what you have as coming in. And then we had a look at our expenses. Now, an expense is an item where you are spending money on a monthly basis in order to sustain yourself or your household. And then we had a look at variable and fixed expenses, and also how to actually manage the two. And now with this example, compiling your own personal budget and ensuring that you review this budget and making sure that it's as close to actual figures as possible, because it's no use putting this together and then never comparing whether what you've put on in writing versus what you are actually doing, is it in line? Because then it's no use.
It's no use. Wow, this is great, and we can't thank you enough, Ncumisa, for really bringing this and breaking it down in such a simplistic way and manner, so that most of us can understand. What else can we look up to in the next coming series?
Okay, so in the next coming episodes, we will take a look at things like how to manage your bank account. We take a look at investments versus saving. We also will look at insurance, and also how to, when exactly should I opt for credit versus me buying something cash. So yeah, there's a lot in store.
There's a lot coming up. Thank you so much, Ncumisa. It's been great. And thank you so much for everyone who has been following and watching. Please keep sharing the broadcasts and the videos to others, so that others can also, share in the knowledge. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to check out other content that we have there. It's bye-bye for now. Signing out. Cheers.